sky over Karen Plain burned with smoke and falling fire. Broken ships littered the sand like dead metal beasts, still glowing from fresh impacts. Explosions rolled across the ground in heavy waves, shaking the air and the bones of every soldier still alive. The battle had already lasted for hours, and no side was winning. It was only about survival now. John Carter ran with his unit through shattered trenches, his boots sinking into loose sand mixed with ash. His armor was scratched and blackened, and his rifle was almost too hot to hold. He did not shout or panic. He moved with steady focus, watching angles, counting shots, pulling wounded soldiers when he could. John was not a hero in stories. He was just someone who kept moving when others froze. A loud blast tore through the trench ahead. The ground collapsed and half the unit fell back. Enemy fire poured in from the ridge. The human commander shouted an order to retreat, but the words were swallowed by noise. John saw the signal flare too late. The unit broke apart, each soldier running for cover in different directions. John slid behind a broken transport hull and checked his ammo. Lo, he took a breath and looked around. The battlefield felt endless, a wide open grave under a burning sky. That was when he noticed movement near a fallen alien skimmer about 50 meters away. At first, he thought it was an enemy trying to crawl to safety. Then he saw the color of the armor. Polished white and deep blue, marked with symbols he did not recognize. 2 alien guards lay dead beside the wreck, their weapons crushed. The figure near the skimmer was still alive, but barely. John hesitated. Every rule said keep moving. Do not stop. Do not engage alone. But something about the scene felt wrong. The alien was not firing back. She was trying to stand, failing each time. Her movements were slow, untrained for this kind of chaos. John cursed under his breath and broke cover. He ran low, shots snapping past him. Sand burst around his legs as he reached the skimmer. Up close, he saw she was badly wounded. Dark blood soaked her side. Her breathing was sharp and uneven. Her eyes met his. They were bright, almost glowing, filled with shock more than fear. She raised one hand, not holding a weapon, but as if to speak. No words came. John did not understand her language, but pain was universal. He turned and fired at incoming enemies, dropping 2 before ducking back. The skimmer offered little cover, but it was something. More enemies appeared on the ridge. Too many. John knew he could still run and maybe survive. Instead, he stayed. He pulled a small field bandage from his kit and pressed it against her wound. She flinched but did not pull away. He fired again and again, each shot careful. His mind narrowed to simple tasks. Reload. Breathe. The world became noise and heat. The alien watched him in silence. She did not understand why the human stayed. His armor markings showed him as low rank. His movements showed no expectation of reward. He was simply there. An explosion rocked the skimmer, flipping it slightly. John was thrown to the ground. His ears rang, but he forced himself up. Blood ran from a cut on his face. He dragged the alien further into the wreckage, shielding her with his body. Enemy troops advanced, confident now. John switched to short bursts, conserving energy. His rifle clicked empty. He drew his sidearm and kept firing. Just when the enemy closed in, the sound of heavy engines filled the air. Alien dropships descended like falling stars. Blue energy fire ripped through the attackers, scattering them in seconds. John lowered his weapon and finally allowed himself to breathe. His legs shook as the danger passed. Alien soldiers rushed toward them, weapons raised, then stopped when they saw the wounded figure. One of them froze. Another dropped to one knee. Their reactions told John everything. This was not just any alien. The wounded figure looked at John again. Her hand weakly touched his arm. Her expression softened, not with power, but with gratitude. As medics lifted her onto a stretcher, alien commanders turned their attention to John. Weapons pointed at him, but none fired. John stood still, unsure if he had just saved a life or sealed his fate. Far above the battlefield, the war had already changed direction, though no one there yet understood why. John woke to silence. Not the empty silence of space or the broken quiet after battle, but something controlled and clean. The air felt cool. Smooth light glowed above him, soft and steady. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then pain spread through his body, sharp and real. He tried to move and failed. His arms felt heavy, his chest tight. He opened his eyes wider and saw that he was lying on a raised medical platform. Strange symbols floated in the air around him, shifting slowly. Machines hummed at a low tone, like distant breathing. This was not a human med bay. John swallowed and turned his head slightly. The room was large and curved, built from pale metal that reflected light without glare. Alien medics moved quietly nearby. Their forms were tall and graceful, their armor replaced by smooth medical robes. None of them looked hostile, but none of them spoke either. He tested his voice. Came out dry. Someone noticed. A medic stepped closer and adjusted a device near his neck. Warmth spread through his throat. He coughed once and tried again. This time it worked. Where am I? The medic did not answer with words. Instead, a soft translated voice filled the room, calm and neutral. You are aboard the Imperial flagship. You are safe. John did not feel safe. Memories rushed back. The battlefield, the wrecked skimmer, the wounded alien woman, the way the soldiers had reacted when they saw her. His stomach tightened. Where is she? He asked. There was a pause. The medic lowered its head slightly. The Queen lives because of you. John stared at the ceiling. Queen. Before he could speak again, the room shifted. The lights dimmed. The medic stepped back and formed a line. Heavy doors at the far end of the chamber opened without sound. Figures entered. They wore ceremonial armor, dark and detailed, marked with glowing sigils. Their posture alone carried authority. At their center walked the alien woman John had pulled from the sand. She was no longer bleeding. Her wounds were sealed beneath elegant armor of white and blue. She walked slowly, still weak, but upright. Her presence filled the room in a way John could not explain. It was not fear. It was weight. John tried to sit up. Pain shot through him. He stopped. The Queen approached and stopped beside his platform. Her eyes met his again, just as they had on the battlefield. But now they were clear and focused. You saved my life, she said. This time he understood the words. A translator rested at her collar, its tone calm and precise. John cleared his throat. I just did what I could. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some of the alien officials looked displeased. Others looked curious. She raised one hand and the room fell silent. I am Elora Valen, she said. Sovereign of the Valen Dominion. You did not know who I was when you chose to stand and fight. That matters. John did not know how to respond. He had faced enemy fire without shaking, but this felt worse. He nodded once. Elora turned slightly, addressing the gathered court. The human fought without demand, without command, and without promise. Under our oldest laws, intent carries weight. An alien male stepped forward. His voice was sharp even through the translator. The law is outdated. The war leaves no room for symbols. Elora looked at him, calm but unyielding. The law exists because of war. John listened, confused. He understood enough to know they were arguing about him. Elora turned back to John. You are not our enemy, but your presence now touches our fate. You will remain aboard this vessel until your condition improves and the court decides the proper path. Am I a prisoner? He asked. No, she replied. You are a protected party. That did not sound better. Later, when the court had left, only one alien remained. She was shorter than the others, her features softer. She introduced herself as Lyra, an imperial liaison. I will help you understand what is happening, she said. John looked around the room. Alien guards stood at the doors, weapons lowered but ready. You saved the Queen, Lyra continued. Under imperial law, such an act creates a binding claim. Cannot be ignored without consequence. John frowned. What kind of consequence? Lyra hesitated. Political collapse. Civil war. Challenges to the throne. John leaned back against the platform, staring at the ceiling again. He had crossed a battlefield to save one life. Now, entire star systems were shifting because of it. Far beyond the flagship, news of the Queen's survival spread through the Empire. With it spread a single question whispered in courts and war rooms alike. Who was the human who dared to save a queen? Time moved differently aboard the flagship. John measured it by light cycles and quiet meals delivered by silent attendants. His body healed faster than he expected. Alien medicine worked with calm efficiency, sealing wounds and easing pain without questions. Still, the feeling of being watched never left him. Every corridor he walked had guards. Not close enough to touch him, not far enough to forget him. He was not chained, but he was never alone. Lyra visited often. She explained small things. How to use the translation band, where he was allowed to walk, what not to ask in public halls. She never lied, but she never told the whole truth either. On the third cycle, she stopped outside a tall chamber lined with glowing pillars. The court has convened, she said. The Queen has summoned you. John felt a tightness in his chest. Summoned did not sound optional. Inside, the chamber opened wide like a stone bowl turned upward. Rows of alien nobles stood along curved platforms. Their eyes followed John as he entered. Some burned with anger, others with curiosity, a few with something close to fear. At the center stood Elora. She wore a crown shaped like flowing light rather than metal. It hovered just above her head, shifting slowly. Her posture was strong now. The weakness from the battlefield was gone, replaced by calm authority. John stopped where Lyra guided him. He stood straight, hands at his sides. He had no weapon. He did not bow. He did not know if he should. Elora spoke, and the chamber fell silent. Today we answer a debt, she said. An elder stepped forward. His voice echoed sharply. The human's actions were reckless. He interfered in imperial war. Mercy does not rewrite law. Elora looked at him steadily. Law was written to guide mercy, not erase it. Another voice joined in. The claim is ancient, symbolic, unenforceable in modern war. Elora raised one hand. The gesture alone ended the debate. The claim stands because it binds ruler to consequence, she said. Without it, power drifts unchecked. John listened, his mind racing. Claim, debt, consequence. None of it sounded small. Elora turned toward him. John Carter of Earth, she said. You stood between me and death without knowing my name or station. Under the first covenant of the Valen Dominion, such an act creates a living bond. She paused. By royal decree, I invoke the claim. Shock rippled through the court. Several nobles spoke at once. Guards shifted. Energy hummed in the air. John took a breath. What does that mean, he asked. Elora met his eyes. It means your life and mine are now tied by law. You are named my protector and bound companion in matters of survival and rule. John stared at her. Companion was not the word he expected. An official shouted. This is madness. The human will be seen as a weakness. Elora's voice hardened. Weakness is a throne without restraint. She stepped closer to John, lowering her voice so only he could hear. The law does not demand affection, she said. It demands presence, choice, and shared risk. John swallowed. He had saved one life on instinct. Now an empire rested on his shoulders. Can I refuse? He asked quietly. The chamber heard him anyway. Elora did not hesitate. Refusal would signal dishonor. It would invite challenge. Blood would follow. John closed his eyes for a moment. He saw the battlefield again. The wounded queen. The dead guards. The choice he had made. He opened his eyes. Then I will not refuse, he said. Silence followed. Elora lifted her hand once more. Let it be recorded, she said. The human stands by the claim freely. From this moment, John Carter is under royal protection and royal obligation. Lights flared along the chamber walls, recording the decree into living crystal. History reshaped itself in quiet pulses of light. Afterward, as the court dispersed, Elora remained with John near the center platform. You did not choose this for power, she said. John shook his head. I chose it because walking away would cost lives. That answer pleased her more than any oath. Beyond the chamber, Word of the decree spread faster than ships could travel. Allies questioned it. Enemies planned around it. And deep within the empire, old forces stirred. The queen had bound herself to a human, and the galaxy would not stay quiet about it. Zxon's status changed overnight, not with ceremony or celebration, but with distance. Corridors that once felt narrow now felt wider, cleared before he walked. Guards no longer followed 2 steps behind. Instead, they stood at attention when he passed. Some avoided his eyes. Others watched him closely, as if trying to measure something invisible. His quarters were moved to a higher deck. The room was simple, clean, and quiet. A wide window showed a curve of stars drifting past the ship's hull. Zxon had seen space before, but never like this. Felt close, almost watching him back. Lyra visited that evening. "You are now recognized as bound companion," she said, careful with the words. "Some will honor that. Some will test it." Zxon sat on the edge of the sleeping platform. "I did not ask for this." "No," she replied. "Neither did the queen." That surprised him. Later, Elora requested his presence. Not a summons this time, a request. He found her in a quiet observation hall, standing alone near a tall window. The stars painted soft light across her armor. She did not turn when he entered. "They will try to turn you into a symbol," she said. "Or a threat. Or a weakness." Zxon crossed his arms. "I am none of those. I am just a soldier." "You are human," she answered. "That is enough to unsettle them." She turned to face him. Up close, he could see faint marks along her neck and arms. Scars carefully healed. Reminders of battles survived. "I will not command you," she said. "The claim gives me no right to do that. But it binds us in the eyes of the Empire." Zxon nodded. "Then we should decide what that means." Elora studied him. "Most beings who enter this hall want power or protection. You want clarity. Clarity keeps people alive," he said. For a moment, something like relief crossed her face. They spoke for a long time. Elora explained the Dominion, its rigid traditions, its fear of uncontrolled rulers. The claim existed to prevent absolute isolation at the top. A ruler bound to another life was less likely to become cruel. Zxon listened. On Earth, power was questioned loudly. Here, it was wrapped in ritual and silence. When they finished, Elora said something unexpected. "I will not place you at my side in public yet. It would provoke too much resistance." Zxon agreed. Let them get used to the idea first. Resistance came anyway. In the following cycles, Zxon noticed it in small ways. Delays in access, cold looks from officers, training requests framed as tests. He accepted them all. In the combat halls, alien warriors faced him with sharp focus. They expected a symbol. They found a fighter. Zxon moved differently than them, less graceful, more direct. He used momentum, terrain, patience. He lost some matches. He won others. But he never quit. Respect grew quietly. Outside combat, he challenged habits. "Why do wounded workers wait for approval to rest?" he asked one officer. "Why are decisions delayed when lives are at risk?" he asked another. Some were offended. Others listened. Elora watched it all from a distance. She saw how soldiers began to speak more openly around him. How junior officers brought problems instead of hiding them. How tension eased, not because Zxon commanded it, but because he noticed people. One night, alarms echoed through the ship. An internal breach. A sabotage attempt. Zxon was closest. Without waiting for orders, he ran toward the disturbance. Guards followed instinctively. The threat was neutralized quickly. Later, it was revealed that the attackers were part of a noble faction opposing the claim. The message was clear. Zxon was no longer an idea. He was a factor. Afterward, Elora met him again, this time with guards present. "You acted without command," she said. "People would have died if I waited," he replied. She nodded once. "That is why the claim exists." For the first time, the court did not argue. As the flagship moved deeper into contested space, whispers followed them both. Not of scandal, but of balance. A human walked the halls of an alien empire, and the stars seemed to lean closer, listening. Danger did not announce itself with alarms anymore. It arrived in whispers, delays, and careful smiles. John felt it first during strategy briefings. Plans changed without reason. Data arrived incomplete. Questions were answered with silence. The war outside the flagship continued to burn, but inside, another conflict was growing. Elora sensed it too. She stood before the High Council one cycle, listening as nobles argued over supply routes and border defenses. Their words sounded loyal, but their timing was wrong. Resources were being redirected away from key fronts. Losses increased. Blame spread. "This is not incompetence," she said calmly. "This is design." The chamber stiffened. An elder replied smoothly, "Accusation without proof weakens unity." Elora looked around the room. Unity built on lies collapses under pressure. John watched from the side. He was not meant to speak here, but eyes kept drifting toward him, some with anger, some with calculation. That night, Lyra came to his quarters. "There are factions moving," she said. Quietly, "They believe removing you will break the claim." John frowned. "Remove how?" Lyra hesitated. "Assassination, disgrace, forced exile, any path that isolates the queen." John leaned back against the wall. "They misunderstand." "Many do," she said. "They think you are leverage, not balance." Soon, the attacks became less subtle. During a routine inspection of a weapons bay, a pressure seal failed. Alarms screamed as air rushed toward the void. John reacted without thought. He grabbed a nearby technician and locked her into an emergency pod before sealing the breach manually. His suit barely held. Later, investigators called it an accident. John did not believe them. Elora did not either. Another cycle passed. A convoy under John's advisory route was ambushed. Intelligence had been leaked. Dozens of ships were lost. Survivors reported enemy forces waiting in perfect formation. Elora slammed her hand onto the command table. "Someone wants this war to bleed us dry," she said. John spoke quietly. "They want you desperate enough to abandon the claim." She met his eyes. "Or strong enough to enforce it." That decision came sooner than expected. An emergency session of the court was called. Nobles filled the chamber, their voices sharp with urgency. "The human presence destabilizes tradition," one shouted. "Our enemies mock us," another added. "The claim was never meant for outsiders." Elora stood. "Tradition that cannot survive contact with honor deserves to fall," she said. Anger erupted. John stepped forward before guards could stop him. "This war is killing your people," he said. "Not because of me, because some of you fear change more than defeat." Silence crashed down. No one had ever spoken to the court like that. Elora did not stop him. John continued, "I do not want your throne. I do not want your power. I want fewer names added to casualty lists." Murmurs spread. Not agreement, but doubt. A noble lunged forward, hand reaching for a concealed weapon. The shot never fired. Elora moved faster than anyone expected. Energy flared, and the noble collapsed. Weapon melted in his grasp. Security rushed in. Arrests followed. Hidden communications were exposed. Proof spilled into the open. There it was. Conspiracy. Several high-ranking officials had been feeding intelligence to the enemy, hoping to force a crisis that would break the Queen's resolve. The court reeled. Elora addressed them with steady control. "This is why the claim exists," she said. "Power must be witnessed, challenged, grounded." She turned to John. "You stood when others hid." John shook his head. "I just spoke." "Words matter," she replied, "especially when spoken without fear." Punishment followed. Titles were stripped. Command chains reformed. The empire did not fracture, but it trembled. That night, Elora and John stood together at the observation window. "Many will hate you now," she said. John shrugged. "They already did." She allowed herself a small smile. "They also listen now." Outside, fleets shifted course. Supply lines corrected. Soldiers received reinforcements that had been withheld. The war did not end, but for the first time in many cycles it began to turn. And deep within the Dominion, A dangerous truth settled into the minds of its rulers. The human was not the weakness. He was the test. After the arrests, the flagship felt different. Not quieter, but steadier. Systems responded faster. Reports came without delay. Officers spoke with care, not fear. The Empire had not healed, but it had stopped bleeding from its own wounds. John noticed the change during command briefings. He was no longer standing at the edge of the room. A place was left for him near the central table. He never asked for it. No one questioned it. Elora began to involve him more openly, not as a ruler but as a witness. She asked his opinion after listening to her advisors. She weighed his words the same way she weighed sensor data or fleet numbers. Calmly, without pride. One cycle, she invited him to a private archive chamber. "This place is restricted," she said, as the doors sealed behind them. "Few outside the royal line have entered." Rows of living crystal lined the walls, each glowing faintly. Memories, laws, and decisions rested inside them, preserved across centuries. Elora placed her hand against one crystal. It brightened, projecting faint images of past rulers. "This is where the claim was born," she said. John watched as scenes unfolded. A ruler isolated by power. A protector chosen not for strength, but for conscience. A bond meant to prevent tyranny through shared consequence. It was never about possession, Elora continued. It was about balance. If I fall, the Empire falls. The claim ensures I am never alone with that weight. John crossed his arms. "So I am meant to stop you if you are wrong." "Yes," she said simply. "And you are meant to stand with me when I am right." The honesty of it struck him harder than any decree. On Earth, leaders were challenged by law and voice. Here, the claim was the law. A living check built on trust. John exhaled slowly. "Then I will ask questions. Often." Elora allowed a small smile. "I expect nothing less." Not everyone accepted this meaning. Messages arrived from distant systems. Protests from noble houses. Warnings of unrest. Some worlds refused to acknowledge the human's role. Then came the challenge. A rival warlord declared Elora unfit to rule, citing corruption of tradition. He invoked ancient rights of trial by command. War was the answer. The challenge demanded joint leadership on the battlefield. Queen and claimed companion together. Refusal would be seen as admission of weakness. John stood beside Elora in the command hall. "This could get people killed," he said. She nodded. "It already has." He met her gaze. "Then we do it right." Preparations began at once. Fleets aligned. Soldiers watched as John walked openly beside the Queen. Rumors spread through ranks. "He is human. He chose to stay. He speaks when it matters." Before deployment, Elora addressed the fleet. "I do not ask you to follow tradition," she said. "I ask you to follow truth. We stand together because no ruler should decide alone." John added nothing. He did not need to. As ships moved into formation, Lyra approached him quietly. "Many fear what you represent," she said. John looked at the glowing stars ahead. They should fear what happens without restraint. The fleet jumped to war. And across the Dominion, beings watched as the meaning of the claim shifted from ancient law to living example. It was no longer about saving a queen. It was about saving an empire from itself. The stars burned as fleets collided. Space filled with motion and light as thousands of ships moved into battle lines. Energy fire crossed the dark like storms made of color. Alarms echoed through command decks, but there was no panic. Every movement followed a plan shaped by many voices, not one. John stood beside Elora on the command platform. Displays floated around them, showing shifting fronts and falling ships. Losses came fast. Victories came slower. This was the trial the warlord had demanded. His forces struck hard and early, pushing toward a vital system near the heart of the Dominion. He believed speed would force Elora into retreat. Instead, he found resistance waiting. John watched the flow of battle. Patterns mattered more than firepower. He noticed something wrong. "He is overcommitting his left flank," he said quietly. Elora studied the data. "If he breaks through here, he risks isolation." He expects you to pull back, John replied. He thinks you fear the claim failing in public. Ellora's voice was steady. Then he does not understand it. She issued commands, clear and direct. Fleets shifted, drawing the enemy deeper. The trap closed slowly. On the front lines, soldiers fought with renewed focus. They had seen the Queen and the human together before the jump. Not hidden, not distant. If they stand together, we can 2-1, pilot said. Reports came in. Morale rising. Coordination improving. Allied species held positions they would have abandoned before. Then the warlord revealed his final move. His flagship charged straight toward Ellora's command vessel, ignoring all defense. It was a challenge meant for the entire Empire to witness. He wants you dead, John said. Ellora nodded. Or discredited. Protocol demanded withdrawal. Ellora ignored it. Bring us forward, she ordered. John turned toward her. This puts you at risk. So does ruling, she answered. The two flagships closed distance. Enemy fire hammered their shields. The deck shook. Officers called damage reports. John grabbed a rail to steady himself. If we match his speed and angle, we can force him into a narrow engagement. Ellora listened, then acted. The ships moved like massive blades meeting edge to edge. Boarding craft launched from the enemy vessel. They are coming aboard, an officer shouted. John did not wait. He armed himself and moved toward the breach teams. Alien soldiers followed without question. This was not his ship, not his empire, but these were lives. The first enemy troops broke through near the lower decks. John took point, moving through smoke and broken panels. He fought close, using cover and timing. He was not the strongest in the room, but he adapted faster than anyone expected. Behind him, alien soldiers held the line. They pushed back the attackers inch by inch. On the command deck, Ellora faced the warlord through open channel. You hide behind a human, he sneered. Ellora's reply carried across fleets. I stand beside one who chose honor without reward. What do you stand for? Silence followed. Then defeat. John reached the final breach point as the enemy ship lost power. Explosions rocked the corridor. Enemy troops retreated in disorder. The warlord's flagship was crippled. Fleets across the system began to surrender or flee. On the bridge, cheers broke out, sharp and sudden. Officers embraced. Some simply closed their eyes and breathed. Ellora did not celebrate. She turned to the open channel and addressed all forces. The challenge is answered, she said. Not by tradition alone, but by unity. Stand down and live. Most did. Hours later, as damage crews worked and medics moved through the ship, John returned to the command platform. His armor was scorched. His hands shook from delayed fear. Ellora looked at him. You should have stayed back, she said. John met her gaze. If I had, others would not have. She accepted that. News spread faster than light could carry it. The Queen and the human had faced the trial together. They had not broken. They had won. Across the Dominion, worlds that had doubted began to reconsider. Enemies recalculated. Allies spoke with new confidence. The war was not over, but its direction had changed. And in the space between stars, a quiet truth took hold. This bond was no symbol. It was a weapon forged from choice. The war did not end with cheers or parades. It ended with silence. A heavy, thoughtful silence that spread across the Dominion as fleets returned home and damaged worlds counted the cost. Victory had come, but it carried weight. Too many names were etched into memory crystals. Too many cities needed rebuilding. John felt it as the flagship slowed near the capital world. The stars outside no longer rushed past. They drifted. Ellora stood beside him at the observation window. We will be judged by what comes next, she said. John nodded. That is always the harder part. News flowed in from every system. The warlord's supporters stood down. Border worlds reopened talks. Species that had remained neutral sent envoys instead of weapons. The Empire did not celebrate conquest. It breathed. The court reconvened days later. Not in anger, but in caution. Nobles spoke more carefully now. Decisions were debated, not hidden. When Ellora listened, she listened fully. When John spoke, it was brief, grounded and focused on outcomes. No one called him ruler. No one called him pet. He was simply present. Elora proposed reforms. Supply oversight shared across houses. Military command reviewed by mixed councils. Emergency authority bound by witness, not isolation. The claim was no longer rare myth. It was defined, limited, and understood. Some resisted. Most agreed. Change had proven its value in fire. Outside the halls of power, the effect was quieter but deeper. Soldiers told stories of a human who fought beside them. Workers spoke of rules that now bent toward reason. Younger officers asked questions they once kept buried. John walked the lower decks more often. He listened. One technician thanked him for saving her life during the breach. He told her anyone would have done the same. She shook her head and said no. They would have waited for permission. That stayed with him. Elora noticed his distance one evening. "You are thinking of leaving," she said. John did not deny it. "My people are still out there." She accepted that. "The claim does not chain you." He looked at her. "It binds us." "Yes," she said. "By choice." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Elora spoke. "When the war ends, I will travel to Earth. Not as conqueror, not as queen above all, but as witness." John turned, surprised. "That will cause fear." "Fear fades," she replied. "Absence does not." He considered that. Days later, the final treaty was signed. Not perfect, not eternal, but honest. Fleets stood down. Weapons powered off. The Dominion began the long work of repair. On the day the flagship departed the capital, Elora addressed the crew and the fleet. "The claim was once a shield," she said. "Today it becomes a bridge. No empire survives alone. No ruler should stand without question." She turned toward John. "Humanity entered our history through mercy. Let that be remembered." John felt the weight of every eye on him. He did not step forward. He did not bow. He simply nodded. Later, alone in the observation hall, he watched stars stretch into motion as the ship jumped toward open space. He thought of the battlefield where it had begun. The sand, the smoke, the choice made in seconds. One life saved. An empire changed. Elora joined him quietly. "Whatever comes next," she said, "it will be written together." John smiled faintly. "Together does not mean the same path." "No," she agreed. "It means shared responsibility." The stars opened before them, not as territory, but as possibility. Far across the galaxy, stories spread. Not of a human who claimed a queen, but of a queen who trusted a human, and of how that trust reshaped the future.